Joy?
Congratulations on your wedding. Brought a gift for you and your new bride.
Joy, whose children?
I wish you peace, Samuel. Truly.
Twins? Two babies?
Samuel wanted to shame his barren ex-wife by inviting her to his big wedding. He thought she would come looking sad and broken. But when Joy arrived in a shiny black helicopter with two little boys by her side, everyone froze. The same woman he once called barren now had twins, and that was just the beginning. Before we continue, do me one small favor. If stories about betrayal, karma, and impossible comebacks are your kind of stories, subscribe now, because over 90% of the people who watch these videos never do. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from. Samuel wore expensive suits, drove the newest cars, and walked with his head high as if the ground was not good enough for his shoes. He was proud, loud, and always wanted to be respected. But behind the big house, behind the gold wristwatches, there was a part of his life that made him angry every single day. His wife, Joy, had no child. Joy was a quiet and gentle woman. She was beautiful with smooth brown skin and soft eyes that carried sadness most of the time. She had married Samuel out of love, not for his money. And for 5 years, she stood by his side. But those 5 years became years of pain because every month she waited, and every month the news was the same: no child. Every evening felt like a test she was bound to fail. She had been married to Samuel for 5 years, 5 long years of waiting, praying, and hoping. But every month ended in tears and disappointment. Samuel came into the room with a sour look on his face. He pulled off his tie and threw it on the table. Behind him came his mother, Mama Samuel. She had a habit of visiting every week, and her words were always sharp. "Samuel, look at your house," Mama Samuel said, crossing her arms over her chest. "You are my only son, my only child. Do you want my family name to die off? Look at your friends. They all have children running around their compounds. But here, there is only silence." "Mother, please, I am tired," Samuel groaned, rubbing his temples. But he did not defend his wife. He turned his angry eyes toward Joy. "Did you hear what my mother said? 5 years, Joy. 5 whole years, and you cannot give me a single baby." Joy looked up, her voice small and weak. "Samuel, I am trying. God's time is the best. We just have to keep praying." "Praying?" Samuel barked out a harsh laugh. "Is prayer all you know? My friend Victor married his wife just 2 years ago, and today we are going to his house for his son's 2nd birthday party. Do you know how ashamed I feel going there?" Later that evening, they arrived at Victor's house. The compound was decorated with balloons, and music played loudly. Children were running around, laughing and playing games. Victor was holding his small son high in the air, his face full of pride. "Samuel, my brother, you made it!" Victor shouted, coming over to hug him. "Look at my boy! He looks just like me, right?" Samuel forced a fake smile, but his heart was burning with jealousy. "Yes, Victor, he is very handsome. Congratulations." Throughout the party, people kept asking Samuel and Joy when their own child would come. Every question felt like a deep cut to Joy's heart, but for Samuel, it was a heavy slap to his pride. He drank alcohol quickly, his anger growing with every minute. When they finally drove back home, Samuel did not say a word. The silence in the car was scary. The moment they stepped inside their house, Samuel slammed the door so hard, the glass windows shook. "You embarrassed me today," Samuel screamed, stepping close to Joy. "How did I embarrass you, Samuel?" Joy asked, tears already filling her eyes. "I sat quietly. I smiled at everyone." "That is the problem. You just sat there, like a log of wood," Samuel yelled, his face turning red. "Everyone was looking at me with pity. They know I married a woman who cannot bear fruit. You are useless to me, Joy. You are just a barren woman." Joy gasped. "Samuel, how can you call me such a cruel name? I am your wife." "You are Nothing, Samuel shouted back, stepping into the bedroom and slamming the door behind him, leaving Joy crying alone on the cold floor. 3 days later, Mama Samuel moved into the house. She did not ask for permission. She simply arrived with 2 large bags. I am staying here until things change, Mama Samuel announced as she walked into the living room. From that day, Joy's life turned into a living nightmare. Every morning, Mama Samuel would force Joy to drink bitter herbal concoctions made from roots and bark. The liquids tasted terrible and made Joy's stomach ache, but she drank them just to keep peace. Drink it all, Mama Samuel would order, standing over her. Maybe this will wash away whatever bad thing is inside your womb. If Joy stepped outside to sweep the compound, Mama Samuel would follow her, speaking loudly so the neighbors could hear. Look at her. A woman who eats 3 times a day but cannot produce a single child for my only son? Joy would lower her head, her face burning with shame as neighbors looked on. One evening, after another long day of insults, Samuel sat in the parlor eating dinner. Joy walked up to him slowly. She took a deep breath, trying to keep her voice gentle. Samuel, she whispered, we have been suffering like this for too long. I went to see the doctor last month, and he said I should bring you along. Maybe you should get tested too, just to be sure we are both healthy. Samuel stopped eating. He dropped his spoon onto the glass plate with a loud clatter. His eyes went wide with rage. What did you just say? Samuel asked softly, his voice trembling with anger. I said, maybe you can see the doctor too, Joy repeated nervously. Samuel jumped up from his chair. Are you mad? Are you telling me that I, Samuel, am not a real man? How dare you insult my manhood under my own roof? Mama Samuel rushed out of her room, clapping her hands loudly. Iwo, did you hear this barren woman? She is calling my only son a weak man, a man who was born strong. I am sorry, Joy cried, backing away as Samuel stepped toward her. I did not mean it like that. I just wanted us to check together. Shut up, Samuel roared. You are the problem here. Do not ever speak such nonsense to me again. The final storm broke on a Friday night. Samuel came home drunk and angry after losing a business deal. When Joy brought his food to the dining table, he looked at the plate of rice and pushed it away violently. The glass plate hit the wall and shattered into 100 pieces, scattering food all over the clean floor. I am tired of looking at your face, Samuel screamed. Every time I look at you, I see failure. I see a curse. Joy stood frozen, staring at the mess on the wall. Something inside her broke. 5 years of endurance, 5 years of insults, 5 years of crying herself to sleep finally caught up to her. I have done everything a human being can do for you, Samuel, Joy said. Her voice was no longer small or trembling. It was quiet, cold, and clear. I loved you. I stood by you. But you treat me like trash. Mama Samuel came out of her room, laughing mockingly. If you know you are trash, then pack your bags and leave. My son will marry a real woman who will give him 10 sons. You will leave here and die poor and childless. Samuel crossed his arms, looking at Joy with cold, unfeeling eyes. She is right. Pack your things and get out of my house. I will call my lawyer tomorrow morning. Joy looked at Samuel for a long time. She looked at his angry face, his hard eyes, and the house she had tried so hard to make a home. She realized there was no love left here, only pain. Okay, Joy said softly. She walked into the bedroom, pulled out a single suitcase, and packed only her essential clothes. She did not take the expensive jewelry Samuel had bought her in their early years. She took only what was truly hers. When she walked back into the parlor holding her single suitcase, Samuel and his mother were watching her. Joy did not say a word to them. She held her chin up, wiped the tears from her face, and walked out the front door into the dark night. Joy found a small, cheap room on the other side of town. It had only a single bed and a small wooden table. But when she lay down that night, the room was quiet. For the first time in 5 years, nobody was yelling at her. She cried until her stomach hurt, but when the sun came up the next morning, she felt a strange sense of calm. Meanwhile, Samuel sat in his house expecting his phone to ring. He told his mother, "She has nowhere to go. She has no money and no pride left. Watch, she will come crawling back here on her knees within a week, begging for forgiveness." A week passed, but Joy never called. 2 weeks passed, and there was still complete silence from her. Samuel grew restless and annoyed. To show her that he was serious, he ordered his lawyer to prepare divorce papers and send them to her temporary address. When she sees the divorce papers, she will panic, Samuel thought to himself. A messenger delivered the white envelope to Joy's small room. Joy sat at her table and opened it. She read through the legal words, asking for a complete separation. The papers offered her no settlement money, no house, and no support. Samuel wanted to strip her of everything. Joy picked up a pen. Her hand did not shake. She signed her name cleanly at the bottom of every page, waiving any right to his money or properties. She handed the signed papers back to the messenger with a peaceful smile. "Give this back to Samuel. Tell him he is free, and so am I." 1. When the lawyer brought the signed documents back to Samuel's office, Samuel stared at Joy's neat signature in shock. She had not begged. She had not asked for a single naira. She had simply cut the rope and walked away into the unknown, leaving him alone with his pride. The morning air was cold, but Joy was already sitting at the small wooden table in her rented room. The room was quiet, free from the harsh shouts of Samuel and the heavy insults of his mother. For the first time in 5 years, Joy woke up without fear in her heart. She looked at her reflection in the small mirror hanging on the wall. Her face was thin, and her eyes still carried the shadow of past pain, but beneath that shadow was a soft, steady light. She was no longer a victim, waiting for permission to exist. She was free. Joy had always possessed a sharp mind for business. Before her marriage to Samuel, she had studied business management and worked briefly with a property development company. But when Samuel's business grew, he insisted that she stay at home, claiming a wealthy man's wife had no need to stress herself in the corporate world. Over the years, that bright, capable part of her had been buried under household chores, endless tears, and the constant demand for a child. Now, she dug deep inside herself to bring that bright woman back to life. Joy spent her small personal savings, money she had kept from gifts, and her own tiny errands to register a small consultancy company. She named it Apex Horizons, CAP. End quote. Her idea was simple but powerful. She would help small and medium businesses find commercial properties, negotiate lease agreements, and manage logistics for their building projects. She could not afford an office, so her small room became her headquarters. She used her laptop, a cheap mobile phone, and a notebook stack to record every idea. Every morning at 6 o'clock, Joy dressed in her neatest business suit. She walked long distances to save transport money, visiting commercial districts, checking empty buildings, and talking to property owners. She took detailed notes on prices, locations, and legal requirements. When she returned home in the evening, her feet were sore and her legs ached, but her mind was alive. "I will not die in pity," she whispered to herself every night before bed. "My past will not define my future." Her first big break came 3 months later. A growing logistics company needed a large warehouse near the city's major highway. Every agent they hired had failed to find a spot that met their budget and security needs. Joy heard about their search through an old university friend. Without waiting for an invitation, she spent 3 straight days searching the targeted area until she found a forgotten, perfectly located industrial site whose owner was willing to lease at a fair price. Joy drafted a detailed 20-page proposal. She spent 18 hours straight refining every sentence, double-checking every financial calculation, and ensuring her presentation looked completely professional. When she walked into the board meeting of the logistics company, the male directors looked at her with skepticism. She was a solo female consultant with no big corporate name behind her. But when Joy began to speak, their doubts melted away. Her voice was calm, clear, and confident. She did not just show them a building. She showed them how the location would cut their transport costs by 15% and speed up their delivery times. The managing director slapped his hand on the table with a broad smile. "Madam Joy, you have solved in one morning what 4 big agencies could not do in 2 months. The contract is yours." Joy signed her first major corporate client that afternoon. When she returned to her small room, she sat on the edge of her narrow bed and cried. But these were not tears of heartbreak or rejection. They were tears of victory. The seed had been planted, and it was beginning to grow. 3 years passed like a swift wind. During those 3 years, while Samuel spent his time boasting in bars and complaining about his life, Joy built her business brick by brick. Apex Horizons was no longer just a small consulting outfit operated from a cramped bedroom. It had grown into a respected property development and logistics empire, occupying the entire top floor of a modern commercial tower in the heart of the business district. Joy employed over 30 young professionals. She was a kind, firm leader who listened to her workers and pushed them to excel. People in the industry spoke of her with great respect. She was known as a woman of absolute integrity, razor-sharp strategy, and quiet elegance. Joy bought her first property, a beautiful 5-bedroom modern house surrounded by tall green trees and a neat lawn. The house was bright, airy, and full of light. She decorated it with beautiful art, comfortable furniture, and fresh flowers. There were no harsh words spoken within those walls, no flying plates, and no bitter herbal drinks forced down her throat. Her home was a sanctuary of complete peace. Yet, despite her grand business success, one small shadow still lingered in the quiet corners of Joy's mind. The cruel words of Samuel and his mother still echoed occasionally. "Eileen, barren woman, a curse." Alone. One quiet Tuesday morning, Joy decided to face that shadow once and for all. She made an appointment at St. Nicholas Specialist Hospital, the most respected reproductive health center in the country. She wanted answers, not because she was seeking a husband, but because she wanted total clarity about her own body. She met with Dr. Anthony, a senior fertility specialist with 30 years of experience. He performed a complete series of modern tests, including blood work, hormone profiling, ultrasound scans, and fallopian tube examinations. 2 days later, Joy sat in Dr. Anthony's calm, air-conditioned office. She held her breath as the doctor flipped through her medical files. Dr. Anthony placed the papers on his desk, adjusted his reading glasses, and smiled warmly. "Madam Joy, I have reviewed every single report. Your reproductive system is completely healthy. Your ovaries are producing excellent eggs, your hormone levels are balanced, and your uterus is in perfect condition." Joy blinked, her throat suddenly dry. "Doctor, are you sure? Is there no blockage? No hidden problem?" Dr. Anthony laughed softly and shook his head. "None at all. You are as healthy as any woman can possibly be. If you were married for 5 years without conceiving, I can state with full medical certainty that the issue was not from you. Your ex-husband should have been the one tested." Joy sat frozen in her leather chair. Tears filled her eyes and rolled down her cheeks, falling onto her lap. For 5 years, she had carried the shame of another man's pride. For 5 years, she had been called broken when she was whole. The last tiny chain binding her heart to her painful past snapped completely. She wiped her face, stood up, and shook the doctor's hand. "Thank you, doctor," she said softly. "You have given me my truth back." With her business flourishing and her inner healing complete, Joy focused entirely on her personal growth. She had no interest in rushing into romance. She believed that love would find her if it was meant to be, But it would have to be a love that brought peace, not pressure. That love arrived during a major high-profile business merger. Apex Horizons was competing for a massive government-approved infrastructure contract to build a modern commercial freight hub near the international airport. To execute the project, Joy needed a strong partner in aviation logistics. Enter Vanguard Global, an international investment firm owned by Daniel. Daniel was a tall, handsome man in his late 30s with a deep, warm voice and gentle brown eyes. He was a self-made billionaire who had built his fortune in aviation, shipping, and real estate. But despite his enormous wealth, Daniel was remarkably humble, grounded, and polite. He treated everyone, from his security guards to corporate directors, with equal respect. Their first meeting took place in a glass conference room overlooking the city skyline. Joy presented the project framework for Apex Horizons. As she spoke, Daniel did not look at her like a man trying to intimidate a female competitor. He watched her with deep admiration. He was captivated by her sharp intellect, her composure, and the calm strength that radiated from her presence. After the meeting ended and the other executives filed out, Daniel lingered behind. "Madam Joy," he said, stepping forward with a warm smile. "That was one of the most brilliant strategic presentations I have ever witnessed. You didn't just present numbers, you built a complete vision." Joy smiled politely, gathering her files. "Thank you, Mr. Daniel. My team and I worked hard on it. Please, call me Daniel," he said gently. "And if you are free this evening, I would love to invite you to dinner. No business talk, just two people sharing a meal and good conversation." Joy looked into his eyes. She saw no deception, no arrogance, and no hidden games. She saw only honesty and quiet sincerity. "I would like that, Daniel," she replied softly. Their first dinner led to many more. Daniel courted Joy with patience, care, and absolute respect. Unlike Samuel, who always demanded center stage and shouted to feel important, Daniel was a quiet tower of strength. He listened when Joy spoke. He asked about her dreams, supported her business ideas, and celebrated her achievements without feeling threatened by her success. One rainy evening, as they sat by the glass window of a quiet restaurant, Daniel gently took Joy's hands in his own. "Joy," he said, his voice rich with emotion, "I know you have walked through deep fire in your past. You don't have to tell me every detail unless you want to. But I want you to know one thing. I don't love you for what you can give me or what you can build. I love you for who you are. You bring peace to my heart, and I want to spend the rest of my life protecting that peace." Joy looked at the man sitting across from her. There was no anxiety in her chest, no fear of judgment, and no bitter taste of insult. In Daniel's eyes, she saw her home. "I love you too, Daniel," she whispered, her heart overflowing with quiet joy. A year later, Joy and Daniel were married. They did not hold a loud, circus-like wedding to impress strangers. Instead, they organized a private, breathtakingly elegant ceremony at a private beachfront estate. Joy wore an exquisite lace gown that flowed around her like ocean foam, and Daniel stood at the altar in a crisp black tuxedo, watching her walk toward him with tears of gratitude in his eyes. Only true friends, respected business partners, and loving family members were present. It was a day filled with laughter, heartfelt prayers, and genuine love. 4 months after the wedding, Joy began to feel mild morning tiredness and a slight change in her appetite. Remembering her health routine, she visited Dr. Anthony at St. Nicholas Specialist Hospital. Daniel held her hand tightly as they sat in the examination room. Dr. Anthony applied the cool gel to Joy's stomach and placed the ultrasound probe against her skin. The screen lit up with gray and white patterns. The doctor looked closely at the monitor, his eyes widening slightly before a huge smile spread across his face. "Well, well, well," Dr. Anthony said, turning the screen so Joy and Daniel could see it clearly. Look right here. Joy leaned forward, her heart beating fast. What is it, doctor? There is not just one heartbeat, doctor, Anthony announced joyfully, pointing to the screen. There are two distinct gestational sacs, two strong heartbeats. Madam Joy, you are carrying twins. Joy gasped, clutching her chest. Twins? Yes, Dr. Anthony confirmed after checking the details carefully. A boy and a girl, perfectly formed, perfectly healthy, and growing rapidly. Daniel let out a loud roar of pure happiness. He leaned over, wrapped his arms around Joy, and kissed her forehead again and again, his tears falling softly onto her cheeks. Thank you, my love. Thank you, Lord. He whispered over and over. Joy lay on the examination bed, looking at the two tiny pulsing lights on the ultrasound screen. Tears streamed down her face, washing away every remaining memory of the dark years. 5 years of insults. 5 years of being called an Eileen, a barren woman, and a curse. 5 years of being thrown out into the dark night with a single suitcase. And now, God had not only given her a self-made empire and a king who cherished her, but he had also blessed her womb twice over in a single moment. Joy placed her hands over her belly and closed her eyes in deep, silent praise. Her transformation was complete. The phoenix had fully risen from the ashes, and no man on earth could ever tear her down again. While Joy's life was full of peace and double blessings, Samuel's life was falling apart in secret. Over the past 4 years, his business had hit heavy losses. Bad investments, poor management, and his own arrogance had drained his bank accounts. Yet, Samuel refused to live within his means. He still wanted the world to see him as a big man. To prove to the town that he was doing well, Samuel planned a lavish outdoor wedding. He was marrying a younger woman named Anita, whom he had courted quickly. Samuel emptied his remaining savings and took huge loans just to rent a high-end golf estate for the wedding reception. He wanted the event to be loud, expensive, and flashy. Mama Samuel was over the moon. Finally, she boasted to all her neighbors. My son is marrying a young, fruitful flower, not like that useless woman who spent 5 years eating my son's money for nothing. A few weeks before the wedding, Samuel heard rumors from old mutual friends that Joy was doing okay for herself in the city. His proud heart burned. He could not accept that Joy might be happy without him. He wanted to crush her spirit one last time. I will invite her, Samuel told his mother with a wicked laugh. I want her to sit at the back of the venue and watch me kiss my new bride. I want her to see the big wedding she never had. Let her see what she missed out on. Samuel printed a heavy, gold-trimmed invitation card and had it delivered to Joy's old contact address. He made sure the card had big gold letters reading, "The Grand Royal Wedding of Samuel and Anita." He truly believed Joy would show up looking sad, broken, and full of regret. Mama Samuel waited eagerly for the wedding day, holding her breath to gloat in Joy's face. The wedding day arrived. The sky was bright blue, and the open lawn of the royal golf estate was decorated with grand white tents, fresh flowers, and expensive glass tables. Over 200 guests were seated, eating, drinking, and listening to loud music. Samuel stood at the head table wearing an expensive white suit, though his smile was stiff because the loan sharks were already calling his phone. Beside him sat Anita in a heavy lace dress. Mama Samuel sat in the front row, wearing a huge head wrap, looking around proudly to see if Joy had arrived. But Joy was nowhere to be seen. By 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it was time for speeches. Samuel took the wireless microphone and stepped up to the center stage. He adjusted his jacket, cleared his throat, and put on a proud look. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, Samuel began loudly, his voice echoing through the speakers. Today is the happiest day of my life. A real man deserves a real woman. A fruitful woman who will build his home, not a curse who fills his house with silence and empty promises. Before he could finish his bitter sentence, a deep, heavy sound echoed from the sky. The wind suddenly whipped across the lawn, blowing decorative ribbons and tablecloths everywhere. The guests gasped, holding onto their plates as a giant, sleek, black and silver luxury helicopter descended from the clouds. The helicopter bore the bold gold crest of Vanguard Global Aviation. "What is happening?" Samuel shouted over the microphone, but his voice was drowned out by the roar of the blades. The helicopter hovered over the private landing pad right beside the main lawn and touched down with absolute grace. The heavy engine slowly turned off, leaving a stunned, breathless silence across the entire estate. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Even the wedding MC dropped his microphone. The side door of the helicopter slid open. A tall man in a sharp, tailored navy suit stepped out first. It was Daniel. He adjusted his dark sunglasses, turned around with total devotion, and held out his hand. Out stepped Joy. The crowd let out a collective gasp. Joy looked like an absolute queen. She wore an exquisite, custom emerald green silk gown that flowed like water around her legs. Her skin was glowing, her hair was styled to perfection, and diamonds sparkled softly at her throat. She did not look broken. She looked powerful, wealthy, and breathtakingly peaceful. Behind them, two smartly dressed personal nannies stepped out of the aircraft, each pushing a matching, high-end, luxury baby stroller. Inside the strollers sat two chubby, beautiful 8-month-old babies, a boy and a girl, dressed in designer white outfits. Mama Samuel's glass of wine slipped from her fingers, smashing into pieces on the green grass. Her eyes bulged out of her head, her mouth hanging wide open in pure...
Twins? Two babies?
Every phone in the venue went up in the air. Guests were filming, whispering, and pointing in total shock. "Is that not Samuel's ex-wife?" A woman in the front row whispered loudly. "The one they said was barren? Look at her. She has twins. And that man beside her is Daniel, the billionaire aviation mogul." Samuel stood on the stage, completely frozen. The microphone trembled in his hand. His face turned pale, all the color draining away as he stared at the woman he had thrown out into the dark night 5 years ago. Joy did not look at the crowd with anger. She walked across the manicured lawn with effortless elegance, her hand resting comfortably in Daniel's arm. Her face carried no bitter triumph, no desire to fight, and no hatred. There was only absolute, quiet composure. She walked straight toward the head table. The guests parted like the Red Sea, watching her every step in stunned silence. Samuel tried to speak, but his voice failed him. "Joy." He managed to choke out, looking like a man who had just seen a ghost. Joy stopped a few feet in front of the stage. She looked up at Samuel. Her clear, calm eyes met his panicked gaze. She saw right through his expensive white suit, right through his fake smiles, and saw the small, broken pride of a man who had built his life on lies. Joy did not shout. She did not insult his new bride. She reached into her luxury handbag, pulled out an elegant gold-embossed wedding card, and handed it gently to the chief usher standing beside the stage. Inside the card was a gift check written for a generous amount, a sum larger than Samuel's entire remaining bank balance. Joy looked Samuel dead in the eye. A soft, pitying smile touched her lips.
Congratulations on your wedding. Brought a gift for you and your new bride.
Joy, whose children?
I wish you peace, Samuel. Truly.
She turned to Mama Samuel, who was shaking in her chair, unable to meet Joy's eyes. Joy gave a gentle nod of her head. "Stay well, Mama." With that, Joy turned her back on them. She did not look back once. She walked back toward Daniel, who wrapped a protective arm around her waist. Together, they walked toward their waiting children and stepped back into the helicopter. Within minutes, the helicopter's blades roared to life again, lifting gracefully into the afternoon sky and disappearing into the clouds. On the ground, the wedding was ruined. Guests were talking loudly, showing each other the videos on their phones. Samuel slumped down onto his chair, his head in his hands. In that single quiet moment, the full weight of his foolishness crashed down upon him. He had thrown away a queen, a self-made empire, and the mother of healthy twins, all to protect his fragile ego. He sat surrounded by his unpaid wedding bills, totally destroyed. 6 months later, the afternoon sun cast a warm golden light over the terrace of a grand private estate. Joy sat in a comfortable wicker chair, holding a warm cup of herbal tea. In the lush green garden below, Daniel was down on his knees, laughing loudly as their twin toddlers, a boy named David and a girl named Divine, crawled happily across the grass toward him. Their bright laughter filled the warm air. Joy leaned back and took a deep, peaceful breath. Her mind traveled back briefly to that dark night 5 years ago, the cold floor, the shattered glass, the bitter insults of a mother-in-law, and the lonely walk into the dark with a single suitcase. She remembered the pain, the tears, and the quiet vow she had made to herself. My God will fight for me. And he had. He had taken her broken pieces and built an empire. He had taken her tears and turned them into double blessings. She felt no hatred for Samuel or his mother anymore. Hatred required energy, and Joy's heart was too full of love to waste space on the past. Daniel looked up from the grass, his eyes shining with deep love as he met her gaze. "Come down, my queen," he called out with a warm smile. "The babies are waiting for their mother." Joy placed her teacup on the small table and stood up. A gentle breeze blew across the terrace, lifting the edge of her dress. Joy smiled, stepped down into the sunlit garden, and embraced the beautiful life she had earned.